Hey, hey, everybody. How's it going? Yeah. So, I'm back. I was gone last week because I had the opportunity to be on a film set, and it was a 4-day shoot, and that went into the time I would have been here doing this live stream. So yeah, that's pretty much what happened. I wasn't able to. I should have sent out a uh, notification or something that there wasn't gonna be a show. But yeah, that's pretty much what happened. I still released an episode of the podcast on that Monday. So if you haven't had a chance to listen to it, it was about basically the limitations of fandom that I uh, I've been going through a process of just how I approach things I used to love is the best way I can put it. How I how to navigate when there are properties, when there are shows, when there are movies and stories that uh we really, at least for me, that I really loved when I was a child, and how it changes over the course of over the course of the decades as different creators come in. They have their own ideas about what they think the story should be and how to kind of deal with that. And I want to say that it's not necessarily about new creators coming in. That's not really what my issue is in terms of, at least with Star Wars. Because I think there are some very talented people who uh, are uh, are trying to create something interesting in Star Wars. My problem is that they don't know how to tell a story. It's like I keep coming back to the it's not what is happening, but it's how they show or how they tell that story about what is happening. Because it's like I have almost no problem with what I'm seeing, but I'm really confused about why I'm seeing it, what the importance of it, what the relationships are between these characters that I'm seeing, why they're in the same scene together. Because none of it makes sense in a lot of ways. In fact, and they and when the writers, when the creators, the people who are tasked with telling this story, uh, they they don't give you anything. At least for me, I didn't get anything interesting in terms of like the relationships. It all seemed very surface level. It seemed very much like they had written a first draft for a show and they were like, "That's good enough. Let's go into production tomorrow." And it's like it feels very half-assed and very lazy, and I can't stand it. I can't stand the fact that like they're essentially I guess a metaphor is that they're building, let's say this franchise is a tower and each level is a different show or movie that they're using to build up um the this tower. And you know so maybe when they're all done it'll look like a cohesive tower, but it's hard to tell like what level you're on and how that relates to anything else. Yeah, and then with just trying to watch any one thing, like I'm gonna use Ahsoka because sure, there was the Clone Wars and there was Rebels, and that's all well and good. But I didn't watch those. I didn't watch those shows. I'm barely aware of who Ahsoka is. But I have no idea about like who Ezra is. Um, I barely know who Thrawn is. I know he's this like tactician, this great tactician. He's a a general, and he has he's kind of running the empire, I guess you could say, for um the time being before the First Order comes in, and so but I like my 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 gripe is that I would love to be able to go into a show, like with the show giving me what's important to enjoy that show, and I never felt that I got that clarity. All I got was just these vague latitudes from, or platitudes, whatever the word is, the platitudes of, oh well, do you want to live or die? Okay, well that's not very specific to Star Wars. That's just life. Like just all of these vague uh, lines about things that point to something else, and I'm like, no, it's okay if you stop and you have a character say, you know, this sort of blah blah blah, or this we shall do this and this, and here is my plan of this and this. Like, that's fine. Like, we need that as an audience, because even it sounds like even the people who did watch the Rebels and Clone Wars, like even they were kind of confused about what was happening because they were changing relationships in this show. So it's like, I don't know if they were planning on this tower being built upon what had come before. It seemed like a very incomplete floor, to kind of finish that whole analogy, and it just sucks because if you've listened to any of uh, my previous episodes, I've talked about my love of Star Wars. I've talked about how it's the one franchise that captivated my imagination as a child. Sure, I was into Star Trek a little bit, but not nearly as much as I was into Star Wars. Like, I wasn't even into comic books that much. I was starting to collect them, but I was more into like, well, Marvel's kind of like this train that has already left the station and has traveled the globe multiple times. There's no way I'm going to be able to catch up. But hey, there's this new comic book publisher called Image. Okay, I'm going to jump on that train. I'm going to get into Spawn. I'm going to get into um the Wildcats, and the other titles are, Pit, or yeah, Savage Dragon. I'm going to get into those comics because it's a story that's just starting, and I can get into it and I can follow where it's going. And so I was more interested in those comics because they were brand new and I could get into them. Little did I know at the time that there are certain runs, there are story arcs that that you can kind of jump in almost at any time and really follow what's going follow what's going on, because it's its own self-contained story within like a run of like 12 issues or something like that. So that was the thing. Hang on one second. I'm recording. Yeah. Anyway, so sorry about that. But yeah, so I was more into the getting in, I guess you could say, on the ground floor of a story, and realizing much later on that I didn't have to. But I still want to say that, like, even with the comic books, uh, you could jump in on certain, like I jumped into like the Death of Superman series, like I jumped into the Breaking of the Bat series. Like the writers of these comic books knew that there was a lot of issues that the audience may or may not have read, and so from page one, they let you know where you were in the story, what was going on with with the main character, um, possibly who the main villain was, unless it was like a mystery. But for the most part, you kind of, if you knew, if you had a vague sense of who the characters were, you could catch on pretty quick to like who the main villain was. If not looking at the poster, like looking at the cover art and seeing that, oh, it's the Joker, it's the Riddler, it's the whoever, or it's like, oh, well, it's this big rock guy called Doomsday. Okay, I get it. Like he's gonna be the main guy that Superman is gonna fight, and so that it, they just knew how to tell a story. They knew how to get the audience in, even if they'd never picked up a comic book before. But with and I'm gonna include Marvel as well. With Marvel and Star Wars, there's this kind of hubris that they want the audience to be confused so that they will go back and watch all the stuff that came before. And the thing that they fail to realize is that not only like the audience might go back to catch up on what's happening only if the current the current installment of what of the story is good, is compelling, is that the audience is able to enjoy themselves and not feel like they have to do a bunch of homework in order to understand what is happening. And that's where my frustration comes in, because there is this kind of hubris with it that it's like, oh, well, the audience is confused, have them buy a bunch of comic books and novels and play the video game, and like it's just opening up the floodgates for them to spend more money. And it's like, no, confusion actually retracts, but it like pushes people away. It actually gets them to, it gets them frustrated to the point where they don't want to come back, where they don't want to be invested in the world, where they just don't care, and they just say, you know what, I got a bunch of YouTube I could be watching. I got other shows I could watch. I got old movies to catch up on. I have all my entertainment needs met. I don't need to waste my time on this. I don't need to do the homework because I don't care. And that's what it kind of feels like. And that's where I am when it comes to especially Star Wars. I don't care. They didn't give me anything to care about. And it's not like it was the Ahsoka show that broke me. It was the constant, like, each show seemed to get dumber and dumber and dumber and dumber in terms of the way they were telling their stories, in terms of the way that the way the characters acted, in the way that like the general common sense of the characters just didn't make any sense. And I was like, why am I wasting my time on this? This is nonsense, and I just don't care. And it wasn't enough for me to say, you know what? I'm confused about this. I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna watch the Clone Wars, and I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna watch Rebels, and I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna buy that comic book run, and I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna, no, none of that. That wasn't even on my mind. All that was on my mind was, if you can't tell me a cohesive story with one season of television, then you don't deserve my time. You don't deserve my money. I'm out. I'm out. I don't care. And that's just where I'm at. I can't deal with that nonsense anymore. And yeah, I guess I'll always have the original trilogy that I can look back fondly on and watch. But even those are kind of tainted by all the changes that George Lucas made. I the like even though when I saw them, when I saw the reissues in the theater, I was excited. I was like, wow, he's gonna make some changes and like he's gonna do things in the film that he had wanted to do, but he couldn't because of the limitations of the technology. I'm in. I want to see what he does. And to be fair, there was a lot of changes that I thought were really cool, but in retrospect, most of them are kind of unnecessary. And some of them are blatantly like, why did you change this? Because it just, and I'm not even talking about the Han shot first thing, although that's kind of part of the like why are you like, yeah, putting in more effects into your film, sure, but changing the kind of character moments. See, I was like, I don't know if I'm into that. So, but it is what it is. Um, at a certain point, everything kind of makes its way into disappointing us, and that's just where I'm at with Star Wars, and I guess I'm fine with that. I can move on and find other uh, things to like, and I'm grown up now, and I can move on from those childish things. Um, I think the quote that uh, I wanted to use in terms of just the way the process of Disney making Star Wars and putting out a very crappy um, season of television is that if we can't trust you with the small things, how are we going to trust you with the big things? And so far, they've shown that they can't be trusted with the small things or the big things. The sequel trilogy was crap. There were some good things in it, but overall, it was narrative nonsense. It just I unless like I need to watch those films for some study or because of because somebody happens to have it on in their house and I'm over and they're like, yeah, let's watch this, I'll be like, fine, whatever. um I don't plan on rewatching any of those films, and I don't plan on rewatching any of the television shows, with exception I might go back to watching The Mandalorian season 1, because I thought that was a pretty solid piece of television that introduced a compelling character and actually had an arc in terms of the first season. But other than that, yeah, I'm out. So, long story short, that was what last week's uh what the episode was. My I guess venting about the state of fandom and when it's so it's okay to walk away when stuff is just crap, and it is what it is. This week, I I addressed an article that actually came out last week that where it was in the Hollywood Reporter, and they revealed that they put a pause on the show Daredevil, Born Again, and they kind of fired the writers, and they fired the directors after they had gone, like they had already shot like 8 out of the 11, or I forget how many episodes, but it was the episode run was a lot more than any of the other shows, which was promising because you need some time to tell a story, and that's been one of the limitations of a lot of these properties from Marvel to Star Wars, is that they're like, this is great, tell a story in 6 episodes or 8 episodes, and so they try to cram a lot of stuff into these shows without having enough time to set things up, to go on a journey, and to pay it off at the end. Because, well, we've learned that the reason why that they don't pay things off is because they want to dangle that carrot so that you'll come back and get some answers on the next one. But you'll never get an answer. It's like, or if you get an answer, it's going to be very small so that they can kind of keep you around and then dangle some more narrative carrots around. So that story came out, and it was also revealed in that story that Marvel doesn't know how to make television. And that confirmed a lot of what I was feeling and a lot of what other people were feeling about these shows. To be fair, some of them started out very strong. I thought WandaVision started out very strong. I was very compelled by this playing with with the sitcom form, and I thought it was gonna go somewhere, and then eventually it just didn't. It turned into like Marvel CG fight thing at the end, and I was like, okay, well, all right, it didn't stick the landing in all the ways that I hoped, but it presented some interesting ideas. Okay, fine. But each show started off somewhat strong and presented some ideas, and then just fell apart by the end. And this article revealed that the reason why was because Marvel Studios doesn't have showrunners, and they don't believe in making pilots. Now, if you know what a pilot, like, I'm sure anybody who's listening to this knows what a pilot is. A pilot is the proof of concept of what a show could be. It sets the tone. It establishes characters. It establishes main conflicts. All of that stuff, so that when you pitch it to a studio, or when a studio is making a pilot, they have a way to prove that they have a story that they can go forward with, and that's why pilots exist. And there was pilot season for decades, and unfortunately, it sounds like that has gone away because I guess studios are just like, yeah, just throw in a bunch of money and make a season of something, and it's like, well, that doesn't make much sense. So yeah, it just especially with Marvel, it sounded like they would just give an idea of like, we want a show about this character, and they would give like, they pay out like $150 million or more to go make a show, and then only then would they look at the footage and see if they had something that was actually good. And I bet most of the time they looked at it and they were like, it's not as good as it could be. Here's some more money. Go reshoot this. And the filmmakers would go and reshoot it, and I'm sure, they would bring it back, and they're like, well, it's better, but like, it could be a lot better. Here's some more money. Go do some more reshoots. So these budgets for these shows, I'm sure, ballooned to astronomical like prices, and I wouldn't be surprised if like most of the shows were in the 200 million range. Like the type of budget that you would get for like a big blockbuster, they would pour into these shows, and it just doesn't make any sense. Like, fiscally, it doesn't make any sense. But that was the way that they were approaching television, because they were approaching television like they were approaching the movies, and it's not the same thing. And in fact, you could tell when you were watching the shows that no episode really left on much of a cliffhanger. There didn't seem to be a cohesive narrative within the episodes. So it just it didn't feel like television. It wasn't television. It was just a movie, like an 8-hour movie cut up into 8 episodes, and that just didn't make any sense. So in this article, they were admitting all of this. They were saying, yeah, we tried to we tried to do the Marvel way with television, but we should really be doing the traditional television model when it comes to television, when it comes to these shows. And I'm sure there was a collective like facepalm from the audience, from all of us who were like, "Are you freaking kidding me? We have been saying this for years that like, even though you're presenting an interesting way to tell these stories, it's not working. It's not good. It's not compelling. It's not getting us excited to move on with the story because there's nothing in the narrative that's I can't speak today. Propelling us further down the line to the next story. It's all just dangling all of these things we recognize, and that's supposed to be the thing. Supposed to be the main fuel that's going to get us to the next story. It just didn't make any sense. So that I did my the episode that I released yesterday was about that, because I couldn't believe it. I had to say something about this because you think about, like, if you're in the truly independent sphere, and I mean this could even be just like if you are making like $5 million films, like that's still considered to be like to be independent, low budget. Like, you don't go into a project not having a plan, not having a script, just not knowing what it is that you want to do, or what you're going to have when when you're when you're done filming, and when you're done putting it together, and when you release it. Like, it just doesn't make any sense. But it seems like since they had all this money to play with, they were like, yeah, dude, we have a vague idea. Go hire a writer to bust out a draft of the script, and we'll go right into production, and it'll be great, because if something doesn't work, don't worry, we'll go into reshoots, we'll fix it in post, everybody. And you can tell, and the worst part about it is that it really exhausted their visual effects arm, whoever they hired. Like, it's recently come out that they really don't like working with Marvel, because of the fact that they would have Marvel would say, whoever was producing the show, they'd be like, well, we're gonna have a sequence where this happens and that happens and this happens, and look, we even that, I heard that they didn't even storyboard because of the fact that they were afraid of leaks happening, which is absolute nonsense. Anyway, so they would constantly change things on the visual effects artists, and they would make a change, but they wouldn't extend the deadline. So they were like, that's great that you did all this work, but we need to change all of it, and by the way, your deadline doesn't change. And so it left the visual effects arm to have to scramble to, sometimes, like, depending on the effect, I'm sure they had to rebuild some stuff or build something from scratch just to make a sequence work, because of the notes that they got, and burning them out, and because of just the long hours, when it didn't have to be that way, but because some executive was like, you know what, this is not working, we got to do something else. And it's like, well, why didn't you work that out in the planning phase, in the scripting phase, in the just at the beginning, And I'm coming at it from my own experience of just working with visual effects on a very small level. Like, I just released my first feature film called Look Into the Fire, and there are some visual effects sequences that are in there, and you know I had never done that in a film before, and so just on a very small scale for my film, and the headaches that I encountered from my lack of planning to a certain extent on like some of the sequences, like that was a headache enough. And imagine, like I can't even imagine having like a 2.5 hour epic, like where there is no plan. Like it doesn't make sense. And to just throw money at the problem and say, well, we we're throwing money at you, so that means you gotta like work 24/7 without sleep just to get this done because we didn't think ahead. It doesn't make any sense. So all of these films, all of these shows are their budgets are way more than they report, I'm sure. There's way more spending that didn't have to happen. They could have saved so much money on all of these projects if they just would have, approached television in the traditional way. But no, they didn't. So it was a big revelation having this happen, and I just don't get it. The only conclusion I can come to is that there was hubris, there was this pride that it's like we're Marvel, and we have the two biggest movies in movie history. We know what we're doing, so we're going to conquer television as well, and it's going to be just as awesome. And we're going to do it the way that we do our movies, because our movies made $1 billion. So yeah, we're gonna do it that way. And I'm sure at the time it made a lot of sense. They're like, yeah, we're we're not, we're doing things right because we're at the top of the food chain. Like, look at us. Everybody wants to be Marvel. Everybody wants to work with Marvel. Everybody, like, we got so many movie stars who want to be in Marvel movies. Like, we're at we're at the top. But they didn't realize that television was going to be a completely different way of approaching storytelling, and like I said, it shows. So that I just yeah, I'm baffled and I'm not at the same time. Although I am glad that these revelations are coming out, because it does give validation to the way the way I was reacting to the shows that were coming out. And I would question, like, maybe I'm not getting it, or maybe there's something I missed, or maybe this is a lot better than I think it is, and I'm just letting the negativity of everything else just kind of filter in, and this is not really that great. But it turns out that even if they, like, I want to say that Marvel had the they had better stories in their, like, they had a better potential in their shows, because of the fact there were a lot of interesting plot points happening. Characters were being introduced. Um, Sometimes they didn't do it well, but they were being introduced regardless of whether or not I thought they did it well. Um, but I guess they had so much more potential to make something really great, as opposed to like Star Wars, where it's like, well, I mean, they did have potential, but it's just been bad. Like 95% of the Star Wars shows have been really bad. So yeah, but with Marvel, there were like I said, they start off really good, and then they would just kind of like fall off at the end, or like they didn't know how to tie things up in a way that made sense, and so it made for a very unsatisfactory experience when the show was done. So anyway, that's I'm gonna get a drink of coffee here because coffee is always needed. There we go. Ah. So let me talk about something that's good, some good television. Um, if you're a fan of Mike Flanagan, he just released his new show on Netflix called The Fall of the House of Usher, which is not what you think, because there is a short story by Ed, can't say his name, Edgar Allan Poe, called The Fall of the House of Usher. And you would think that this series, being 8 episodes, is just Mike Flanagan taking that story and just expanding upon it more, like just kind of taking hints of things and just saying, okay, I'm gonna fabricate um a story off of this short story that's only maybe like 20 pages long. That is not the case. It's actually way more interesting and cool than that. He actually takes a lot of Poe's stories, and he weaves them into this overarching story of the family, uh of the Usher family. And I thought that was really interesting because the episodes are titled stuff like The Pit and the Pendulum, or The Cat, or like there's all of this stuff, like these episodes hint um at these other works. And at first I thought, oh, they're just being tongue in cheek. He's just being like, tongue in cheek about it because it's a story based on Poe's work. But he actually pulls from all of those stories, and it's great. So the story is about the Usher family, like I said, and if the title, The Fall of the House of Usher, it's like, okay, well, clearly it's about this family and about their downfall. So that's pretty straightforward. And the story is modernized. So the Usher family is a pharmaceutical family, like like a good um, placeholder, I guess you could say, for like the Sacklers now. And they are they are peddling like opioids, and they've gotten rich off of uh pain management, and selling and selling uh now I'm stuttering, selling opioids to the masses. So that's we get a sense of that in the first episode. And but not only that, we know that all of the children of Roderick Usher have died. In fact, it starts with a funeral for 3 of them. And so we get a sense that, okay, well, the fall of the House of Usher, all right, the children are dead, but Roderick is not dead. Like Madeline, his sister, is not dead. There's still people in the family who haven't died yet. So it's like, okay, then maybe we're starting here where these relatives have died, and now it's down to like the final 2, and so we're gonna see how that story unfolds. That is not the case. It's actually the series um, flashes back to when Roderick was a young man, and it even actually flashes back even further when it's he had to deal with his mother being sick, and so him and his sister had to look after her, and there's some scandalous stuff that happens, but but basically, like, they ask for help from somebody in the neighborhood who has a lot of money, and he doesn't help them, and so their mother dies, and um some supernatural thing happens where she comes back to life, and she basically kills like spoiler alert, um she kills this rich man, and so that kind of sets off this like this very like supernatural part of the story. But he grows up, and he ends up working for this pharmaceutical company that his mom was the like the like secretary at, and that's kind of how he makes his way up in the company, um to basically like running the company, but he has to do some very nefarious things in order to get there, um including, well, he also like comes in contact with a man who's trying to take down the company because of their uh like shady dealings. Like they would submit false reports on drugs that they were trying to get cleared by like by the FDA. Stealing bodies from graves, so there wasn't any evidence of what the drugs did to the people who died. Just all kinds of like weird dark stuff happening. And so he ends up working with this investigator to try to take down the head of the company, and that's one of the story arcs that we follow, because we know, at the beginning of the show, that Roderick becomes the head of this company. He's the patriarch. He's like top dog. He's running things, and so when we flash back to him as a young man, the question, it lingers of like, well, how does he get to this point? What does he do in order to to gain power in this company? And you do eventually find out what he does uh, by the end of the series, and it's a very dark like kind of tale, but also is, if you've read Poe's work, when you see what he does, you're like, oh, I know, yeah, the this is from this story. I totally get what's happening. Brilliant move, Mike Flanagan, for including this in the narrative. So throughout the show, each episode kind of address, like, there are six kids. Some are like legitimate kids of Roderick, and other of them are like adopted, or they weren't legitimate kids, but they were still like from his genes. He slept with like with other women, and they had children, and so they had, they are heirs to this um uh uh, uh to this empire. So yeah, throughout the entire show, you see how each of the children dies, and it's kind of like, in a way, it's kind of like the seven deadly sins a bit. I know there are six children, but it's like each one has a particular uh personality, a particular vice that causes them to to basically go insane. Is the common thread through a lot of it, is that they're driven mad to the point where they cause their own destruction, and their own death in a lot of ways. So and then there's this very there's a supernatural character who is, weaves herself in and out of the scenario, causing these things to happen. And it's a very it's just a great show. Without going into much more detail of the show, there's just it's so well done. It reminds me a lot of the like the Haunting of Hill House. It involves a family. It involves like how each character is dealing with their situation and the choices they make, and a lot of it comes down to like the bad choices that they make as well. And it's so well done. The cinematography is beautiful. The performances are really spectacular and interesting, and like dark and just nuanced. There's a character that Mark Hamill plays where he's pretty much like the guy who cleans up all the messes, like for the Usher family. And there's a great turn at the end of the show where you get to see Mark Hamill almost like break down in tears because he's confronted with um, the consequences of his actions, and he is given a choice on what to do about that. And it's so great. And then yeah, like Henry Thomas, who if you if you've seen the other like Mike Flanagan shows, he tends to turn up in pretty much all of them. But even further back, if you saw the movie E.T., he's like he's Elliot, and it's great to see him have a career. Like mostly because all I knew him from was E.T., and then he seemed like he went away, and then all of a sudden he was popping up in these Mike Flanagan shows, and I was like, oh, he's great. He's a really good actor. As an adult, he's a really great actor. And so seeing him pop up and playing, uh, essentially against type in this, and he plays a really, you know, just an asshole, and you really you don't feel sad about what happens to him because of all of the things that he does that are just so undespicable throughout the show. But yeah, it's on Netflix. Go check it out. I also recommend The Haunting of Hill House. I think that was really well done. Even if like when you get to the end of The Haunting of Hill House, it kind of there's a positive spin on it, which I didn't hate, but it did feel kind of out of place. But like other than that, the show itself is also really well done. I loved Midnight Mass. I thought that was great. The Midnight Club. It's more for like it's for like YA like audiences, but there's still some good stuff in there. A lot of jump scares. He seems to rely a lot on jump scares, especially in that show. And yeah. Uh, Also like the Haunting of Bly Manor. I was like that was all right. I mean like across the board, he like regardless of how the story is told, or if it like falls apart at the end, like he always gets great performances out of his actors, and like the cinematography is always beautiful. But when it comes to like the shows to check out, like The Fall of the House of Usher, I think was really great. You should check that out, especially because it's brand new. Midnight Mass I thought was great, and The Haunting of Hill House I think were also like those three were really like top notch, like Mike Flanagan shows. So yeah, check it out if you get a chance. I can't like I plan to come back to them. I want to rewatch the like the Haunting of Hill House, especially before Halloween, and it'd be great to be able to to watch that again. Um, and maybe like Midnight Mass would be great to come back to as well. But other than that, I'm glad that I watched the Fall of House of Usher. I had been looking forward to it for I think a couple years, like ever since I heard that he was doing that show, that he was adapting it into a show. I was like, oh, I can't wait for this. This is gonna be so cool. I can't wait. And it was, and I'm glad I'm glad he was able to to put it together and release it, and now I can praise it, you know to to people who are looking for something to watch, especially around Halloween. So that's, yeah. So yeah, the that is some great television that is, in a way, it's like, it's mature. It deals with like very dark adult themes. It doesn't shy away from showing gruesome scenes, or to have characters do things that are completely like despicable and wrong. And I think because, heck, I'm an older guy, and watching stuff like Star Wars, like, maybe I'm just not into it anymore, because I want to be challenged. I want to watch things that have genuine conflict and stakes, and characters can die, and they're not going to pull any punches about it. I just I think that's just where I'm at. Like, maybe I just needed to turn away from all the childish stuff and say, you know what, it's that was for me in the past, but that is not for me right now. And who knows, maybe a couple years from now, I'll miss it, and I'll say, yeah, I was into Marvel for a little while. Maybe I'll like start watching those movies again, or maybe I'll revisit the shows. Like, I remember them being terrible, but maybe with some new fresh eyes, like, I'll appreciate it more. Like, maybe with Star Wars, I'll be like, well, I didn't get it, but maybe I'll rewatch it. But like, and just out of a sheer curiosity of, like, it's been 5 years, let me revisit it just to see if I remember it being as bad as it was. Because I do that now with stuff that I watched back in the '90s. I remember certain things being really great, and I'm like, let me rewatch that movie. Let's see, like, if it stands up. And sometimes it does, and other times I'm like, it didn't really stand up, but I mean, I still have that memory of it being great like when I was younger. And so, I can rewatch it with fresh eyes, and see its flaws, but still love it, because it's still a really great movie. Or even, like, when I watched it back then, I was like, I know it's dumb, I still like it. I'm gonna watch it anyway, because I'm entertained by it, and it's something that, I watched it because of a certain factor. Like, maybe there was an actor in it that I really liked, or maybe there was like a sequence that was really cool, or like, who knows. So anyway, that's really all I wanted to talk about today. And yeah, so check out the episode I released yesterday. I called it "The Excessive Stupidity." That's the name of the episode, because of the whole thing with Marvel, and just spending all this money before they even knew, like, what kind of show they had, or before they even had, like, it seems stupid. It's like, why would you spend all this money on a story that you weren't sure was, like, together, or like, ready to go? Just why? You didn't have a showrunner. You didn't try to shoot a pilot to see if the idea was going to be something, was going to work. It's like, well, that's just dumb, and you wasted all this money. So I get into that. And then also, if you didn't listen to the episode from last week, it was about the limitations of fandom, and of course I went into that earlier in this stream just about how like I'm kind of done with Star Wars, and um, that's fine. I it's no longer for me, and it's time for me to just walk away, and it's sad. I wish it wasn't the case, but that's just what's happening because it's dumb. In my opinion, it's dumb. It's childish. It's lazy. It's just not for me. I want to fill my attention. I want to fill my soul with stories that challenge me, or that present ideas that have compelling characters that are interesting, that take me on a journey, that make me feel something. Like, I don't feel anything when I watch Star Wars. Like, I get maybe like a little bit of like, oh yeah, that's kind of nice when it comes to certain things. But I'm like, but what does it all mean? Oh, it doesn't mean anything. You just put it in there so people would be like, hey, look, there's that thing. There's that thing I recognize from that other thing. Yay! But it doesn't mean anything. It's hollow. It's shallow. It's nothing. It's literally nothing. It doesn't mean anything, and stop doing it. All of you, like all the franchises, stop doing that. We don't need member berries. We need stories. We need characters with compelling conflicts and goals, and um just things that they can do, or like challenges that they need to overcome. Like, that's what we need as a society, is just characters that have to deal with shit. Like, that's it. Characters that need to deal with shit, and how do they deal with it? How do they go about it? How do they deal with falling down and getting back up again? How do they do it? Because, like, yeah, we have examples of each other, but how often do you talk to somebody who's like, let me tell you about all the crap I'm going through and how I'm getting through it? It's like, I mean, maybe you talk to somebody every day who like tells you about their problems, and how they plan to get through it. But stories are a good way to kind of like find inspiration to apply to your own life. And it doesn't have to be drama. It can be like, I mean, you can find that in a comedy sometimes, where you just watch a character going through a bunch of crap, and you see how they recover, or like what they do to kind of get through it, or what ideas they have to try to get the upper hand on something. It's like, but at least you're seeing a character like thinking and trying to do something to get a result, or to get what they want. It's like that's a lot of what life is. It's just trying to find a way to get what you want. And how do you go about doing that? And how do you come up against conflict? How do you come up against like other people who also are trying to get what they want? It's like all of these like stories addressing this simple um part of life is very important. It's very, and it can be very fun. Like, I don't think these writers are having a lot of fun when they are tasked with writing some of this stuff. It's like, how can you have any fun? Like, nothing's happening. Literally nothing is happening in these shows. And people, there's no conflict, nobody has to do anything. They're just there. And then they say some stuff, and then they leave. And then, okay, like, we have a space battle, but nobody dies and nobody gets hurt. And it's like, that's not fun. Like, that's not dramatic. That's not compelling. That's not, the stakes aren't there at all. Like, how is anybody having fun? And I'm sure they're not. I'm sure they're like, you know what I'm really looking forward to is going home and having a drink. But first, I gotta bang out this script. Oh, here you go, first draft. I'm going home. I'm going to the bar. You know, I, I I'm sure that that's the mindset of some people. Or it's like, oh, they're not paying me enough, so I'm gonna just do the bare minimum, because if they really wanted quality work, they would have paid me more for this thing, or whatever. Who knows? There's any number of reasons why the work suffers. and I don't want to put it at the feet of the writers. It could be the studios who are just not giving the writers time, or like the production, they're not giving them time to do anything properly. So they're like, well, all we got to do is just get this done. It's not going to be great, but we just got to get it done because we got so and so breathing down our necks to deliver something by such and such a date. And it's like, maybe they'll take a look at it, but most likely the people who are breathing down their necks probably don't even look at it. They're just like, is it done? Yes, release it. Okay, but it's not done. I don't care. Release it. It's like, I'm sure that's also the scenario as well. So, okay, I've been going for about an hour, and I don't usually talk for this long. I'm quite a quiet person when I'm not on a live stream or when I'm not doing a podcast, and so talking for this long consistently is it's kind of a it can be a marathon for me at least. So all right, I'm gonna end the stream. If you listen to this on the rewatch, thank you for for listening. I hope I brought some insights or some kind of just that you were able to enjoy this hour that I tried to talk about stuff. So also, I like I said before, I have a feature film called Look Into the Fire. You can find it on Tubi. You can find it on Amazon Prime. You can find it on the Roku Channel, and yeah, check it out. And it stars Greg Henry and Jackie Dallas, and yeah, it's been a labor of love, and to give it a watch, leave a review on IMDb, to let me know like what you thought of it, or you can email the podcast and let me know that way. So yeah. Also, the email is tentative.title.with.tim.podcast@gmail.com, or you can catch me on Twitter at title_Tim, and you could like send me DMs there, or again get in touch with me there. So yeah, that's all I got for today. So all right, thank you everybody for tuning in. I'll next week I won't be around for a live stream. I'm going to be on another film shoot, so I will not be around to do this, but I should be around the week after that. It's great to be on set again. It's great to be working with with people who are doing some interesting work, and yeah, it's a lot of fun. I love being on set, even though it can be a grueling experience. It can be long hours, but I at least for me, I try to keep it, I try to keep spirits up. I try to keep everybody and enjoying themselves as much as I can. Because like if you're having fun on set, then it's no longer grueling. It only ends up being just long hours, but not grueling long hours. So, all right, guys. Thank you for tuning in, and I'll be around in the next couple weeks.